Hi, Csaba.
Long time no see. How you
Long
doing?
time no see. And this light is blinding me, so just try to. Okay, this is my first live on LinkedIn, so I hope everything is linked in. And as I press
Hi,
go,
Csaba. Long time no see. How you
long
doing?
time no see. Oh, this light is blinding me, so that's weird. It's not
Okay,
what I want. This is my first live on LinkedIn, so I hope everything is linked in. And as I press
Hi,
go,
Csaba. Long time no see. How you doing?
crikey.
Oh, it's on a loop now.
Yeah, that's weird. It's
Okay,
not what I want.
This is my first live on LinkedIn, so I hope everything is linked in. And as I press Hi, Csaba. Long time no see.
Oh, crikey.
Oh, it's on a loop now.
Yes. Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, this is my first live on LinkedIn, so I hope everything is linked in. And so I press
Oh, crikey.
Oh, it's in a loop now.
Okay.
What's happening?
I have no idea. I stopped sharing on the live stream now. It didn't say that I have to come up of Zoom or anything. Let me double check before we go live.
Is there a benefit of doing it live?
I don't know. I already told, it's already scheduled as live.
No, I mean, if you promised it to be here, I'm just curious.
Yeah, maybe in past scheduled time. Shall I try and press go live and see what happens?
I mean, you're an engineer. It's all about testing. I don't know.
I
I've never
know.
done this. I don't know.
And I haven't. But let's do and let's see what happens. It will be fun. It will be what it will be, right?
Obviously.
So obviously. So let me screen live on this. Okay, I think we are live. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Okay, admittedly, doing my first live, so we'll see what happens on the other side when we started looping again and hearing each other talking. Hi, Csaba.
Okay, I think we are live.
And yes, we are hearing each other, and this is not good. This is gonna be fun. Okay, okay. I muted the live stream on LinkedIn, so hopefully that will help. Everything's first time, trial and error. We'll see what comes out. Well, certainly this is recording, so worst comes worse, we'll just post it on LinkedIn afterwards. Thank you, Csaba, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'll let you to introduce yourself in a minute, but first, why we're here is because we are both passionate about creating better environment, and at least, as you said, at least making the environment in the workplace a little bit less toxic. And I said I want to create it colorful, so it's like you're not aiming as high, but as long as we can make it less toxic, that would be amazing. And I completely agree with you. I've got you here today because I decided there is so much updates, there is so much articles, there is so much being written and kind of thrown at people out there about psychological safety, about inclusion, about diversity. And I felt like conversations are missing. So that's why we're here today, because I do feel that wisdom is best conveyed through conversations and dialogues. So if people are there hearing us and listening to us, it would be great. Ask questions if I can find them. I'll answer them. But both of us are on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with us afterwards and ask questions if this didn't work quite as we planned. So hi, Csaba, I'll let you introduce yourself because I think you know the best who you are.
And the short version is that we measure and optimize psychological safety, motivational drivers, and cognitive diversity, the three invisible forces that make or break a team. And like you said, it's very true that a lot of people talk about these topics. And I think the challenge is that often there's much more passion in this field than science and practicality. And that makes it difficult for clients to take the topic seriously because they can see that, yeah, it's a good topic. Yeah, it would be nice to have it. But if you cannot measure something, you cannot visualize it, it's not real. So it makes it really easy to ignore it, but it makes it very difficult to optimize it. And that's exactly what we address with our solutions.
Yes, and also the psychological safety topic is for many, as you said, very vague, but also it's a big topic now. And actually many people don't quite understand, or there is lots of myths and misunderstandings what psychological safety is. And I know Amy Edmondson is talking about this, and we had a conversation about that as well, that people tend to think that it's environment when everybody can do whatever they want, everything is acceptable, and people just have to kind of tolerate each other, which is far from, and it's actually comfortable is the word people often used in relation to psychological safety. And it's far from that, isn't it, when we started to talk?
Yeah.
It's actually very uncomfortable. And because you add those measurements to it, as you said, you bring the science, you've got tools, or we've got tools we can use, people can't unsee it. So it really gets actually uncomfortable from very beginning, doesn't it?
I think what you describe is not even comfort, but it's like circus or sometimes chaos. And the problem is that every single good idea can turn into a horrible one if it's overdone. And if the definition of psychological safety for someone is that I have to feel comfortable and I can do whatever I want, then it creates the wrong expectations. And then people clash, and then it's going to be a big mess. Now, the problem is that often people just create and look for solutions, but they don't know what the root cause is. So they find a solution to address a problem that is not the real issue. And then they're not getting the results that they paid for and hoped for. And sometimes they come to the wrong conclusion that, this topic is fake news. No, you just didn't know how to fix it. Because there is a lot of buzz around the topic, but less science. But as soon as you can provide a framework, you can measure it, you can create meaningful conversations driven by data and rooted in science, it becomes real. You can have a constructive conversation instead of hiding everything under the rug of political correctness to keep out this illusion of we don't have conflicts. Everybody loves each other. We celebrate diversity. No, you don't. Your brain doesn't. Don't lie about it, because if the starting point is incorrect, you cannot plan an accurate journey. And that's exactly why we have this 4-step process. First, you measure it, then you visualize it, because the assessment can give you the data, but the insights, the stories come from the participants. And then we can co-create the next steps. So we can optimize it, and then we can go. There is no shortcut.
No, and everybody is involved, and because the data you collect is from the particular team, it's not somebody else's statistic. There is no way around it for the team, especially when you can see that actually, for me, the fascinating part was when I started listening to you and got to know what you do, was the diversity part. So for me, I see it as a visible diversity and invisible diversity. And there is so much hoo-ha and celebrations about visible diversity, which by all means is important. But it's something, it's a gender, it's a country of origin, something we can see. So if I turn up for interview, great, she's a female, she's got accent, so she's from abroad. Okay, I tick few boxes from that visible diversity. But actually what you found is, and what you've got the data for, is that people are more diverse as individuals than actually cultural diversity. And also what culture is a very kind of topic which needs a little bit of clarity. But just take it step by step. When it comes to diversity, there is invisible diversity, cognitive diversity, which is completely something different to what it means to be international, or diversity of gender, of nationalities and stuff. And that's fascinating. That was such a news to me, and I'm sure it will be to many.
I think there is an overlap, of course, because we cannot separate it. But imagine that you buy a hammer in 10 different colors and 5 different sizes. Do you have a wide variety of tools? Do you think that's going to be efficient? No, it's pretty much the same thing, but different looking for the same function. And that's exactly what happens in teams, because one of the strongest forces in team dynamics is homophilic diversity, which means that we like and trust people who are similar to us, especially inside. We love people who are smart.
Why wouldn't we? It's so comfortable.
It is, because that's exactly what the brain likes, because we can run on autopilot. We can stay in the comfort zone because we are surrounded by smart people, people who have common sense, people who think like us. That's a bit selfish and also naive. So, we have this illusion that diversity is good for the business. So there's a problem. We all agree on something and then it feels right, but it doesn't make it true. Because as a team, we can be individually really smart, but collectively truly blind. And we have plenty of case studies, plenty. So when it comes to, for example, what you mentioned, nationalities and genders and all those things, yes, that's important, especially when it comes to equality and equity.
Yeah,
representation, 100%. Very important.
But there's another layer to it which companies are missing on, which is the cognitive diversity.
Yes, because if you have the same type of people from different backgrounds, then you're not going to get the results that you're hoping. It's good for marketing because the picture is going to look fantastic on the website and you can tick a lot of boxes, but that has nothing to do with business, nothing to do with strategy and creativity. But that's also just one thing. So what if you have a lot of people who think and behave differently? Fantastic. Is that good for the business? No, it can be a bloodbath. You have to know how to make it work. It's not automatic. It's not based on common sense. You have to understand their strengths, the weaknesses, that you have to understand that culture differences are clashes of common senses. And if that's how I look at the topic, I can remove this illusion of superiority, that I know the truth. I'm above you. I know what's right. No, even if we disagree, life makes sense from my perspective. So let's find out what that is. Let's learn how to see the same situation from different perspectives so we can make better decisions. And then we can choose to respond instead of just reacting. And that is the definition of uncommon mindset. And that's exactly what we are working on.
Yeah, and this uncommon mindset actually makes complete sense, doesn't it? Because so many teams, when you ask people, they don't go, oh, the job is problem. Most of the time, it's relationship within the team, within the company. Different departments have different way of thinking because you went for a career of financial advisor, whatever, for a reason. You go, I went for engineering for different reasons. So I will have common thinking with engineers, but not necessarily finance team, not necessarily with project managers. So kind of bring and that's where the clashes in values, clashes in differences, basically. So this really helps navigate a team and kind of open the conversation based on the team, and kind of it's like a pause button. That's how I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's like sitting everyone down and pause and rewind, but actually there is a better way to communicate. There is a better way, and I know you're going to catch me, what's better? Because those words, I know they are very vague for you. So having meaningful conversations is the word, or open and honest conversations about that, and see each other from different perspectives. Because at the end of the day, it is everybody's perspective. The two people approaching the same summit from different sides of the hill will draw a completely different map if we ask them, but they're actually both heading the same direction. So bringing this into the team can be valuable. And I know you talk a lot about the friction in a team. and you like friction, you like that because you feel that something teams can really work with, and that may mean that there is quite a wide diversity, but not mutual understanding. And that's basically what we can bring into the team. Do you want to elaborate on that from your experience?
So it is true that I like friction because I think there's a lot of value in friction. That's exactly where the potential lies for success or disaster. It depends on how much you understand yourself and others. So that is important. So having different perspectives in a team can be fantastic. But can you tap into that potential? That's a different story. So that's why we need to create the right environment, which is high psychological safety and motivational drivers. Because maybe you have a really good idea, an important opinion, or you notice a mistake, but are you going to speak up? Do you want to, or can you? These are really important questions. And that's exactly what our research shows as well, that around 60 to 80% of all potential is lost in a team because of these things. The biggest distance
Can you
between...
repeat that number for everyone? Because there was, you said, but it's massive number, 60 to 70, did you say?
So there are different researches. One shows that 60 to 80% of all problems in a company happen for 3 reasons: clash of values, clash of personalities, and poor leadership. And all 3 of them stem from the same source. But another research by the 3 Circle partners showed that around 79% of potential is lost in a team because of the interaction gap. And when you talk about better communication, that is a natural outcome when you understand the blueprint of why people think and behave differently. Then we can bridge this mindset gap between our intention and impact on other people. So there was a really interesting research in the MIT Sloan Management Review that most of the leadership programs fail. But why do they fail so miserably? And one of the main reasons was that they don't measure the impact on the people who matter the most, the team. But it's measured on how entertaining the program was, how much information provided, but there was nothing about the trajectory of the leaders. There was nothing about improving team dynamics, nothing. Indeed, one of the participants said that often they choose based on the packaging. That looks good, that's popular. And it turns into this kind of corporate Tinder profile, swiping left and right. But then you don't get the results that you pay for. And that's the problem with that. So that is the guess and hope-based solutions. You think that, oh, that's the problem, so you solve it, but it turns out it wasn't. And that's the real issue there.
Oh, yeah. And just to bring all those 3 forces together, we are talking about psychological safety and motivational drives and cognitive diversity, and ideally they're all important, because, as you said, if there is diversity within a team, and then that's cognitive diversity mainly we are talking about today, and people are just sat there in a meeting and same people are coming with opinions and advice, and the others are just sat in a meeting and was like, oh, I'm not gonna in this environment speak up. That's the potential loss. Those are that's 79% a number you were talking about. That's the gap, that you've got people sat there in a meeting with the really good ideas, but you're actually losing. And if I understand, if I remember how that research was done, just to paint a picture, how they found out, because they tested individuals on answers to solutions, and then they brought them together as a team. So as an individuals, they had much higher score on resolving those problems than as a team, and that's the gap we are talking about, which I think 79% potential lost in your workforce. How many more people do you need to hire? You know, just to perform the same job. If you can utilize that and bring that potential much higher, I guess.
Yeah.
Can we aim for 100%? Why not? Let's be optimistic. In reality, well, if everybody can speak up in everybody, and that's the psychological safety part of it, that people actually feel they can speak up without being kind of spoken down to, or kind of being dismissed.
Speaking up is one thing, but can you convince other people? That's the interaction
Oh,
gap.
that's another layer to it.
Because there was this update on LinkedIn. I did it last year. That it had more than 1 million views and a lot of people shared it. And that was talking about the same topic. And it was about the confidence doesn't equal competence. And silence doesn't equal incompetence. Because often you think that, oh, somebody is loud and they have a really strong opinion, that must be true. And you know what? I back off because what if I'm wrong? And that's how the potential is lost. So speaking up is one thing, but do you have the skills to convince someone to deliver the message in a way that it connects with them? That's a very different story. So that's how we have to create the right environment, but also we need to help people develop the right skills.
Yes, that's see, it got me thinking. You're absolutely right, because that how you convey the message, whether it will be received by people, and does it tap back into cognitive diversity, how we convey our message, what's important for us, and how we like to communicate. Is that part of it? Is that what cognitive diversity shines a little bit of light on? Especially extremes, when you meet someone who likes to go around the houses and give you all the background of the information, while the other person is stood there like, it takes forever. Or another way around, lack of information for someone who likes a little bit more substance.
Yes, cognitive diversity is about your preferences. So that also depends on your personality type and your cultural background, which is way beyond just nationality. And that is something that you mentioned at the very beginning. And I think we have to clarify that we all belong to 15 or 20 culture groups at the same time. And according to research, the poorest container of culture, as they said it, country of origin, gender, and generation. Meaning that based on these categories, you cannot predict an individual's values and beliefs. That has nothing to do with science. You cannot create a high-performing team based on passports. You just cannot. So depending on your background, some people are just very blunt and in your face, very low context. And that's beautiful because we like clarity. And others, they talk much, definitely too much sometimes. So you can imagine everything on a sliding scale. That, if you're very much on one side, then by default, the other side feels wrong. We don't even know why, but it feels wrong. And if we have the option, we just, what, I don't want to mix with those people because they're annoying. And that's homophilic diversity. I want to be with people who speak like me, who have common sense, because that's easy. That's what the brain likes. So, but when you're in a team, sometimes you don't have the option. So when you have high cognitive diversity, usually psychological safety drops in the beginning, because that just means that you are surrounded by people who think and behave differently, who react differently to what you expect, and you have no idea what's going on. That's tiring. That's really bad. But if I know that, I also know what to do about it. Instead of pretending that I love everyone and I celebrate everything, no, I get to know myself. And then I get to know people who think and behave differently. Then they become more predictable, familiar, and now the brain likes it. Now we can create inclusion. Now we can turn differences into synergy instead of painful liability. And that's really important. So that's what would you like to achieve with this?
And I also like what ICQ Global and the DISC does, because it creates the conversations. It doesn't just give labels. You are red, you are blue, you are C, you are D, you are I. And it removes that kind of excuse factor from it. I'm D, I'm red, this is me, deal with me. So it really gives responsibility to the whole team. Everyone is responsible for the psychological safety. Everyone is responsible and expected to contribute, because that's the only way to kind of create or increase the potential within the team, rather than just labeling people, putting them into the boxes, into the groups, and then kind of expecting everyone to adapt. But adapt to whom? To those who shout the most, to those who are the quietest. So I really love about the ICQ Global and the DISC that it really brings responsibility, kind of levels up a responsibility. So everybody has to play their part to create really functioning and high performing team. So I know you've done lots of work on this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of, if not the only one of few programs who brings the culture and the personality together. So you are able to compare the person to the country. You are able to compare two people who are working closely together. You are able to obviously look at the whole team and where the blind spots are, meaning what type of personalities you are missing. So this is really, really valuable. But also you've got what you mentioned, scale, with actually labels on it. So you can really see, I don't know whether I didn't ask you to have something prepared for us to share with us, but if you do have any visual, I can let you to share the screen.
I think that is something that we can share later on. That's not a
Or
problem.
later on, yeah, that would be good. So people do have an idea, but I really like that you can really see if you are reactive or if you are active or kind of reflecting, and you can see visually where your team is and where the blind spots are in very kind of several areas. So there's another level which, from experience, I think it's missing in many cases.
Yes, because if you look at those reports, it can give people the blueprint, which makes it much easier to bridge that mindset gap. It doesn't necessarily give them responsibility, because that is down to the leader. Because when you have high cognitive diversity in a team, you have to unite them in a future vision. Because without that, the team is going to fall apart, especially under pressure. They're going to fall into silos of people who think and behave differently. But once you have a goal, a vision, and that is so clear, and as a leader, you can describe it as vividly as other people can talk about the past, then people realize that when we disagree, you're not against me. You have a different way of getting there. Now we can create a high-performing team. Not without it, but without that goal, all I can see is that you disagree with me. I guess it doesn't feel silly, Sonka. That was such a silly thing to say. How dare you? I mean, that's cognitive diversity. Good one? No, that's a bad one. But if there's a goal and we know that we are there for each other and we have the same mission, then we can do that. So cognitive diversity is just the potential. But cultural intelligence is when you make it work. And cultural intelligence is not international knowledge. That's not true. That's good for global mobility. It's not good for teams. Indeed, you can get really confident and you can make bigger mistakes. That's the disadvantage. So when you unite people in that vision, and then they have this blueprint, and they learn how they can complement each other, instead of trying to teach the other person how to have common sense, how to be normal, then it's great. Not without it. But if you don't have a word for something, you don't have the vocabulary, you don't have a frame of reference, how do you talk about something you're not aware of? You can only talk about the symptoms. And especially if there's no psychological safety, but they use political correctness instead, then I cannot even ask you a question. And if I cannot ask you a question, what's the alternative? I assume something, which tends to be negative, and then I discuss it with my, partners around me. And that's not good for anyone. So at the same time, we have to give back the agency to people, because I have to be brave enough to ask a question. But you also have to be brave and skilled enough to answer a question instead of choosing to get offended. Oh, Czaba's asking me because, he's taking the piss. No, I'm genuinely interested. So it's a two-way street.
So, and then it goes back to self-awareness and knowing yourself in the first place, if I understand where you're going. We know that without knowing what you want, the conversations, like leaders are these days encouraged to have more conversations, find out what your people want. Many times they do know what they don't want, and we all have been into that position. But if they ask you, okay, who you are, what works for you, how do you prefer to work, or how do you want me to send you information? Is it more visual? Do you need more details, or do you want me to just tell you what needs to be done and you'll go off and do it? So people actually don't know. So there's another way of finding out through the global disc, first who you are, who you are, and then you can start communicating that to people so they can understand you better. And now everybody does it. Obviously, that's the conversation, and we can adjust and understand each other. That's the next step.
Exactly.
Because until then, everything will be very personal, won't it? So if you told me that I said something silly, I just choose to get offended, because actually I think Csaba is against me, whole world is against me, and it's
He's
just
a horrible person. Yeah.
And then I'll go and talk to someone else who you offended as well, and we'll create this little group of people, and we'll gang up on Csaba, and then you'll go and talk to your people, and you gang up on us, and disaster. So, and maybe we are a little bit exaggerating, but maybe not, because in some companies and in some cases, we naturally divert and complain to people who will agree with us. And it perpetuates the problem, because suddenly we've got another social group, we've got agreement, and we've got this social little group, and not even going to gossips. It's just natural what we do. So awareness of this, and open the conversation and understand. I like the way you said it when we spoke. We are equally different, and I absolutely love that. How you and basically that's what you bring to the teams, to make them aware that we are all equally different. Yeah.
That's definitely important. And you know that I don't really believe in this toxic positivity and everything is nice. I much prefer accurate thinking. So yes, we are all equally different, and one profile is not better than the other one. So if we look at the ingredients, but how people express those values and how they meet those needs, that can be very different, because some of them are constructive, others are nasty. So the ingredients can be very same, because you and me could have an identical profile. That is true. It doesn't mean that we behave the same way, because you face very different challenges than me. You found very different ways to meet your needs and express your values. And when you grew up, how much could you be yourself, or how much did you have to pretend in order to be accepted? These are really important questions. And this is what you referred to in the beginning, that the standard psychometric assessments profile the personality, fantastic. But your personality determines how you want to behave, but your environment determines how you have to behave. You cannot separate them. And sometimes people think that I combine the psychometric field with the intercultural field. That's not true at all. I removed the illusion of separation. It was always connected. You cannot separate them, because everything is relative. Everything is compared to you. And that's why the journey starts with us. Having said that, most people think, I know myself so well, but probably that's not true. We know our own little habits. We know our narratives. And then we make choices that support those storylines. And then it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It must be true because this is the result I got.
For the rest of the life. Yeah.
Yes.
So, in some cases. Absolutely, but that led me, and now I lost. Never mind. It'll come to me. But as we were talking about that equally different and kind of a different experience, but it'll come to me. Another thing I really like when you because you've got lots of these little things that you take what it is, what we are used to, and then you change the wording of it to actually highlight how not quite precise it is, or it's not the reality. And one of them is the golden rule, and obviously, and a platinum rule, which was upgraded. So I would like you to go into it with your own, without my interpretation of it, but with your own words, because it's another thing which can bring it all together for people, that why the golden rule is not so gold when we are working within a team.
From an ethical perspective, it's great. Be nice to people, because the golden rule is about treating people the way you want to be treated. So if it means that you have to be nice and kind and all those things, that's great. But if you try to lead and serve people based on what you need and what you want and what you cannot stand, then it's going to backfire majestically. And that's why the platinum rule is important, which was coined by Dr. Tony Lasandra in the US. that you have to treat people the way they need to be treated. But here's the challenge, because often they don't know how they want to be treated. They know how they don't want to be treated. So this is also, I think, often our biggest challenge as coaches and consultants, that how do you give clients what they want, but also what they need?
Mhm.
And it's not the same thing. It's almost like asking a little kid that, do you want this chocolate or you want this apple? Of course, I take the chocolate.
Yeah.
But you need that apple. Take that. But no. So how can we cover that apple in chocolate and then, oh, this is what I asked for.
Yeah.
But they also get what they need. And that's the biggest challenge. And what we noticed is that if there is a solution that, let's say that it works, but if it's too complicated, people are not going to use it.
Mhm.
So for us, it's
Absolutely.
really important to make it as uncomplicated and practical as possible so people can actually use it. Otherwise, there's no positive impact. Fancy tools don't really work if it's disconnected, if it's out of date. So how can we create one operating system and many applications just to reduce that friction of learning, so they have more energy to bridge the mindset gap, to build better rapport, so they stop draining themselves, they stop driving other people crazy? Because the biggest distance between two people is misunderstanding, and that happens because we don't learn about this at school. Imagine if we could, it would be a different world, but it's not. So that's why we have
No,
to
yeah.
design these courses.
And that's why that was one of the first thing actually got my attention, got me really thinking when I've met you. There's a golden rule. What do you mean we are not? That's not always helpful, because that's how we are brought up. You have to treat others how you would want to be treated. And it's so easy, isn't it? And so I can see now how it can lead into clashes and misunderstandings. But also, I think I feel it's important to mention that with all this, keeping in mind that it's all well meant. And that's what the golden rule is, basically, that you mean it well. That when somebody says something or does something for you, the assumption is they weren't planning to hurt you or to offend you, or they just
You're so
happened.
positive. You're so positive again.
I like to think that, because most of the people in a workplace, and unless we are really stressed out and everything, the whole world clashes. And even then, I like to believe that people work from that golden rule, and because it works for them, they just project it. So kind of be curious, taking that step back and kind of, okay, this is not personal. This person is trying to project something, works for them, or is normal or is natural for them. And that's another thing to distinguish, which helped me, like, on a spot when you ask me who I am. So what's natural to me and what's normal? And the normal being, how would I act? And that's how the test is actually, that the survey you are doing is done, and that's the advice you gave us when we were doing our assessment. How would you prefer to act? What would be your natural reaction, instead of how you feel you should act? And I think it's really good measure to use on the spot. And sometimes we need to kind of go for the norm, but it's a choice. It's not a reaction. It's not the autopilot. If we know ourselves, we can choose to act based on norms, because certain norms have to be obeyed. But as long as we know what's natural to us, I think it was a really lovely and simple way people maybe can take away today and start observing what's natural to me. How would I like to really react? Just shut up, stop talking that much.
Yeah.
That would be many times my reaction. And I'm sure now I'm going on, and you probably naturally would go, Sonka, can you just shut up so I can say something? And yes, I know,
No.
because we are getting to know each other, and we understand each other. So, and you just have to bear it. It's my show.
Exactly. I see. I'm very polite.
I know you are, but you go. What do you think about this natural and norm?
I think this is a kind of question that most people don't think about, because I think there's a more realistic version of the golden rule, because you have your version, and then you also make it even more positive, assuming the best intention, which is great. But what I would say is that people do what they consider right based on what they consider true to get the best outcome. And that might be, not a good intention. But in that situation, that's what they do, because maybe I have to conform to the norms, even if I don't want to. Maybe I'm struggling so much, so I have to choose between two really bad options. And that's my decision. Is my intention good? Well, it depends. If I have to choose between two bad things. So that's important, definitely. But what's the difference between what is natural to me and what's normal to me? I mean, this is a question that most people never think about.
No.
Because culture is not who we are, it's what we are used to. That's a huge difference, a huge one. And the problem is when we stick to one culture group. Because if you think about a culture group as if they were like prepackaged mindsets, let's say that I'm vegan, I'm German, I'm Republican. These are all culture groups. They tell you exactly what to think, who to like, who to hate, because that's very important. What is normal, what is frowned upon, what is rewarded. You don't have to think. Now, the problem is that if most of your identity is based on one culture group, one prepackaged mindset, and somebody attacks that, it feels very personal. And it's like an attack on me. But if you are much more balanced and you belong to a lot of different groups, then it doesn't really matter. Yes, it's important, but you choose your battle. But it's not for survival anymore, because I've got a lot of different parts. But then I can make more intentional decisions. I can act intentionally, as opposed to thinking that I'm just floating around and then I'm here and next day I'm there and I don't know what to do. And if I don't know myself, then my sense of certainty needs to come from somewhere. Where is that? Is that the national identity? Is that your way of eating? Where is it coming from? But if it's not coming from you, from inside, then that's a dangerous place, because then you depend on external source of approval. And that's exactly what we want to avoid, to give people back the agency, because they get to know themselves. They know exactly what they stand for. So they don't have to bully anyone to feel important. They don't have to hide to feel safe. That's stable. That's a good starting point. So inclusion starts with self-inclusion. There is no shortcut there.
And I think, Csaba, I would even end it on this, because the self-inclusion, that's where it starts. And I can't agree more. And I know some people are still floating around, but once we all have been there, once you get to know yourself, and sometimes it's not pretty, but that's what it is. Until then, everything else will be very vague and fragile around us. So I think, unless you've got anything else you would like to share with us, other than where people can find you and ask questions, because I'm not even trying to find whether we've got any comments, but I'll brave it up. And I'll go on LinkedIn and have a look.
Not just on that note, that when you said that, what if you get to know yourself and you find something that you don't like? And that is not a failure. That is fantastic, because you identified something. And if you know yourself, then you can actively work on it. So instead of using, psychological assessments as an excuse, you can escape your personality trap. You don't use authenticity as a glorified form of fixed mindset, but you use it as a starting point. I don't like it. How can I optimize it? How can I level up? How can I find an even better way of doing things? So not because I have to hate myself, because I have to shame myself into growth. No, not because I'm not good enough. It's because there's a better way of doing things. Because progress is happiness, and then we have to grow. Because the more you are, the more skills you have, the more safety you have, the more you can do. As opposed to thinking that I stay in my comfort zone and it's going to be fine. No, it won't be. That's very dangerous. So
and narrower
that's not a
this
failure.
comfort zone is, more fragile the world around us will be. So with knowing ourselves and then starting to be open to others, because we've got that chill, we are fine with ourselves. So if I get offended, I know it was my choice, and I can go and speak and have a conversation about that or not. Again, it's my choice how I want to react to it. So expanding that comfort zone, expanding our nervous system, so being able to kind of accept other opinions, others' views. Sometimes it can be completely on the other spectrum of what we would do or say, or you know, the journey we would take. But just kind of being aware that it's not about us, and there are others walking different or having different map of the world, walking different paths, coming from different perspectives. So I think for me it's very liberating, because it feels like being in this small space in fear that something will break me any minute, because I'm just so fragile and there is so much so little wiggle room. Suddenly all this space open, and the shield grows, and I feel just much more liberated to just go to the world and speak to people and interact and have those conversations and create together. So the openness it brings, and I hope people can feel it, that if this you've got in the team, oh my God, the potential we were talking about, you know, it's just, and it's nowhere near woohoo. There is lots of research if people want to see. I know you can. You've got lots and lots of research. You've got your own data available to actually show people that what it can bring to the team.
But you also brought up something really important, and I think we have to mention it as the last message maybe, is that being in a comfort zone can be scary, because temporarily it feels safe, but deep inside you know that it's not. And it's always the back of your mind. So here's the question to ask. Do you run away from pain or discomfort? You can tell the difference, but your brain cannot. But your brain is the same thing. So naturally, when you say that, you know what, expand your comfort zone, it's like, you know what, go against nature. No, most people wouldn't do it unless you know why you want to do it. You know how it serves you. You can differentiate between discomfort and pain, because your brain cannot. Then step by step, you can do that. But otherwise, if you didn't have to, let's be honest, we wouldn't do it. But now, if you have the self-awareness, you also know why it's important, then you can actively do that.
And if you can create the environment, everybody feels safe to do so and start expanding even better, and that's the psychological safety. So we kind of close the circle really nicely. And yeah, so thank you very much, Csaba. It was so insightful, and I can talk about this over and over, and I know we've had a few conversations already, but it's just we can go deeper and deeper, and we may have you here again if there is something specific again, or we've got really nice study. Give us a shout. It will be always good to see what you're up to. If you want to find Csaba, best on LinkedIn, is that correct? Or is it someone? Yeah, I'll post under the recording where to find you and where to look for information in case people want to get in touch, either for teams, either of us, or kind of even getting certified. I know there is another lot coming in May, and definitely I would recommend people going at Csaba's book, Uncommon Sense in
Unusual
times. And I've read it probably a couple of years ago, and I'm planning to read it again, because if this all made sense or not quite, that book is just yeah, eye opener, mind opener, heart opener, all of it. And you can get it on Amazon on Kindle or as a paperback. So I'll post a link to that as well. So go and grab one. Thank you very much, Csaba. Lovely to have you here. Have a lovely rest of the evening, and bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.
See you.